Yet another career day for Sam Darnold and another win for the Minnesota Vikings, 14-2. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. Today on the show, of course, we are going to recap the Vikings' 27-25 victory over the Green Bay Packers. Now they go to 14-2. And here's the thing that everybody wants to hear. You already know it, but you love to hear it. It is all on the table for them. Week 18. Vikings at Lions, Sunday Night Football, 1 seed on the line, division on the line. The winner gets the 1 seed, home field, the bye. The loser gets the 5 seed, and they will travel to either Atlanta, Tampa Bay, or the Rams, depending on what happens leading up to that game. By the time we kick off that game, we will know everything but who's the 1 and who's the 5, by the way. Everything else will be in place because the Vikings are game 272. That's the last game of the regular season. So we'll have lots of time to get into all that. We'll do the crossover, same thing we do all week. But for this game, because it is, late December, a lot of people are traveling on Sunday, and this is the kind of game that a lot of people will end up missing. They'll be on a plane, they'll be in the car or whatever. So I thought the best way to go over this is chronologically. Let's recap this one. So if you missed it, I'll give you the vibes that you missed and try to tell you the experience that it was. And we can go over some of the key moments as we come across them. Plus, I've got a few points at the end that I'm going to make. So that's how we're going to do this here on Locked On Vikings. So to start out, maybe the first major moment here is the Green Bay Packers start their drive pretty well. They get a first down. They're not like driving down the field, right? But they do get one first down. And on the 5th play of that drive, Jerry Tillery forces a fumble, Vikings ball. This is isn't this like the thing of the season that it's always like just not really the guy that you expect that like makes the play? That it's like never, Jonathan Grenard has made a lot of plays, but like so often it's Jerry Tillery. And, on offense this game, it's a lot of Jalen Naylor. Everybody's kind of stepping up when they are needed. And while they're getting a lot out of their stars, so much of this season has been defined by plays like this. And it gives the Vikings good field position, which they do not capitalize. They end up going, they get a run stuffed up on a first down and then a couple incomplete passes. And they punt, but they force a 3-and-out on the way back. And that leads the Vikings to a pretty good looking drive again that actually gets right to the cusp of field goal range and a very interesting decision point. A 4th and 3 where they could go for it. They could kick. You could even feasibly punt, but I think that's everyone's least favorite option. Kind of a no man's land deal. And I think most people, I would bet you anything, all the bots want you to go for it there on a 4th and 3 in that situation, but the Vikings have seen Will Reichard make from 58 this year, so they send Reichard out there, and he kicks it. It's a true kick, but it comes up a little bit short. That's interesting, because usually your leg's your leg, right? Like you can get it there if you're swinging at it, and it's usually like with kickers, and Reichard missed another one in this one, like when you're swinging at it from long distance, and he had some trouble with another kicking thing we'll get to. But when you're kicking at it from long distance and you're swinging at it, it can exacerbate any little hitch in your giddy up that'll like push the ball left or right. But that wasn't the case here. It's almost like he was so worried about that he didn't swing at it enough, and so you gotta get some of it right. So comes up short right off the crossbar, by the way. So he'll doink 2 of these actually, right off the crossbar. Bummer. But it gives the Packers pretty good field goal range. They get a couple of first downs. They kick. So they're up 3-0. This will be the only lead the Packers have in the game as the Vikings immediately get the ball. Drive down the field into a drive like mostly effortlessly down the field. There's one sequence where they get a false start, kind of puts them behind the chains. It leads to a 3rd and 4 that they need. where it's this great, like, it's just a little under, but Addison is running motion like to one side, and then he like cuts back to the inside, and it gets, I think his Bullard was the corner widens out with the motion, and then just has like no shot, no leverage at all against it. So it's an easy completion. They continue the drive, and then the Packers bust a coverage. That leads to touchdown Jalen Naylor, 7-3. The Vikings take the lead. They will not relinquish it. The busted coverage, my best guess is, and it's always hard with a busted coverage because you're never quite sure who did the wrong thing and who was actually doing what they were supposed to, but it looks to me like it was supposed to be quarters. And I think 29, I don't know who 29 is, but whoever 29 is on the Packers was an inside quarter safety, and an inside quarter safety is supposed to, basically the two of those guys are supposed to bracket any like middle deep stuff, like a post route, which is what Naylor was running. So anything deep in the middle, those two guys basically want to be like, one's low and inside, one's high and outside. You want to be on a diagonal bracket with that and like cone it. That's what they call it, cone it. So you want to cone it, and he will instead take the cheese of a dig with Justin Jefferson running right across his face. Hard to blame him. 18's running right across your face. Hard to blame you for, paying a little bit of attention to that. But he kind of abandons his primary assignment to go to the next thing. Something that's great to do if you don't have a post coming across the field, but you get a little tunnel vision. You don't feel the post coming across from the other side. You screw up, you leave your teammate out to dry, and suddenly Naylor's wide open, touchdown Vikings. Call that a gravity play if you want, but I think it's just an oopsie. So that kind of puts the Packers, I think, into high gear because they actually get a really nice drive going the other way, but they get to a 4th and 2 in, if I recall, they were in field goal range, and they go for it. Yeah, they were in like pretty easy field goal range. And they go for it. They hit Jaden Reed on a slant, and he's open. He is right there. I think he gets open on Gilmore. It's tough. It's a slant. It's a quick game, but it's out a little bit too far in front. Jaden Reed drops it. Drops have been a huge problem for the Packers all year, and it bites them again. The Vikings take the ball there and go down for another field goal drive. This time they will get almost they get to 1st and goal, but they'll stall out on the goal line. They'll kick a field goal. And on that drive, Darnold is just like absolutely humming. Like he is dealing by this point, and you can really tell that he's dialed in. A lot of these plays and a lot of the offensive drives that don't work out, you can feel like at the beginning of the game, Darnold was holding the ball for a long time, getting the top of his drop. Stuff wasn't there. He didn't like it. Hitch. And it was taking kind of forever. So you got some sack problems, and you kind of got like when the Vikings offense doesn't work, that's what it looks like. And it quickened up a little bit. The timing started to dial in, and then suddenly you get scoring drive into halftime. So you get this field goal scoring drive. The Packers get the ball with like in a 2-minute drill. So, oh no, right? Here comes the Vikings defense, 2 minutes. It's been a problem for Flores. It was even a problem for pre-Flores. It's been a problem forever. But they'll get the stop. It's aided by a penalty on the Packers on a 3rd and like inches where they did like a quick run that got like more than enough, but there was a penalty, so they bring it back. It turns into 3rd and 5 instead. And then the Packers decide to go deep with it. Wasn't there, and they punt. Gives the Vikings the ball again. And by the way, Packers started with the ball, so they get to do the double up thing, and they do. But it's weird, okay? This is where it gets weird. So the Vikings drive in a field goal range in a really nice 2-minute drill, including a big one to TJ Hawkinson. But it leads to another 55-yard field goal attempt that drifts just to the outside, but it's no good. Flag on the defense, offsides. Now, if you ask Packers fans, this was the only thing that happened in the game. This is the only thing I've seen Packers fans talking about in the game, because ultimately it was a 2-point game and this cost them 3 points, and therefore that was it. Look, if the situation at the end of the game were different, everybody would have played it different. Same deal as the Week 4 game. But I think it's on Kingsley Enagbare, and I think his hand right before the snap gets into the neutral zone. Just like barely. I think it's a weenie call. I don't love that call. However, a lot of the screenshots that people are posting on social media are before Kingsley Enagbare moved his, like he moves his hand further forward after the screenshot, but before the snap sometimes for some of the things that people are posting. So like we could chill out a little bit, but it's a gift. to the Vikings. Whether you think it's a gift from the refs or a gift because a Green Bay Packers player messed up, either way, the Vikings are blessed with a second chance. Then Reichard kicks it down the middle. Timeout Packers. He was iced. Oh my goodness. And then he kicks it down the middle again. So he'll make the 50-yarder twice easy. But the 55 would have been no good. So you kind of keep that in mind with the other struggles that Reichard had. But that takes us into halftime, where now the Vikings are up 13-3, and all they got to do is sort of coast this thing home. And, they've been absolutely cooking the Packers offense. Packers analysts are, decrying how Jordan Love is having an off day. It's beautiful. And we get into the second half. That'll be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Rocket Money. Look, if you are like me, you might notice that you got a whole bunch of stuff that you're subscribed to that you didn't even realize was costing you money. I'm a disorganized person, and Rocket Money is a great option to help me get organized and clean up some of those like ghostly subscriptions that you don't even really want anymore, but you're still paying for no reason. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that can help you find and cancel all of that, but it also helps you monitor your spending, lower your bills, and even set your financial goals. Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and they've saved over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. They've also got their goals feature, which helps you set aside money every month for your future. So there's no more stressing about budgeting and all that stuff. You can get a bit of a cushion build up. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. We took a little bit of a week off while I was out of town for the holidays. You understand, but I'm going to be back in a lot. We're going to do a lot. I'm going to try to do a lot because this game makes me happy and I want to live in it. So we're going to do a lot. You can find that at patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL, and everything else that I've already done throughout the whole season is all free to watch there, unless I forgot to do that, in which case, please remind me. So let's move on. So second half of this game, you got to understand where we're feeling, right? At least for me, it's 13-3. You're feeling good, right? It's like, okay, 13-3 that at halftime. Hard to ask for a better half from the defense. The only scoring drive they gave up came from pretty good field position off of a missed 57-yard kick, right? Like they're starting at midfield. So to take the ball and then go drive right down the field and score a touchdown to go up 20-3, like the party is starting in your head, right? But there's that little gremlin in every Vikings fan's mind that's like, wait. It's not over. Hold on. But this drive is awesome. It includes 2 excellent third down conversions, a 3rd and 3 where and Aaron Jones crosser gets there and they kind of quick snapped him. They get up to the line fast, quick snap him. Aaron Jones gets way ahead of, I think it was a corner for a beautiful conversion. And then a 3rd and 7 where Darnold cans into the right play, blitz picked up, and then he delivers a high pass over the middle, another one for Jalen Nailor, who had an excellent day. And it ends up in the final play of the drive is a whirly bird. So I saw somebody post the play art for a concept called Matador, which is what the Vikings ran there. I don't know if that's also what they call it or not, but what it is it's supposed to look like Bo. So the Vikings run all the time. They run this like 4 or 5 times a game. So the Packers are keyed in to see it. The concept is Jordan Addison would run an arrow route, which is just like a quick curl around like 7-ish yards, and then a basic behind it. Wrap in, you might call it. Bo is what I call it. But it's meant to kind of put a zone defender in conflict there, right? The guy either comes up and plays the arrow and then you throw it behind him, or if he stays deep, you can throw it in front of him. So they're hugging that arrow really well, but then that arrow turns around and turns into an actual wheel route. So it's like a little whirly bird. There's all kinds of crazy names for it you got. But it's disgusting. Addison like lets up on his arrow route and he's selling. He like looks like he's like just standing there, like he's, ball didn't come to me. Like, and then he takes off. It is such a beautiful little acting job. and he gets out, beautiful diving catch. The ball's laid out just a little bit further than maybe you would perfectly want it, but Addison makes a beautiful diving catch, and it's 20-3. So again, like party's on here. And then, by the way, blitz on third down and a back footer to Jaden Reed. Byron Murphy, who also had a totally bananas game. He got called for 1 DPI, and I didn't even really agree with it. And otherwise, like a couple of sweet pass breakups. Excellent game for Byron Murphy. He's playing out of his skull in a contract year. But that leads the Vikings to get the ball back again. They could go up 27-3 here. I mean, it's like the route is like on. This is looking nasty. They're cutting to a frustrated Jordan Love on the sideline. He's like whipping his helmet off. I mean, we've got everything. We like Kevin Burkhardt's starting to go down the line of like blowout topics here. And then it starts. Sam Darnold on 2nd and 12 gets TJ Hawkinson on a corner route. He floats it just a little bit too slow, just a little bit too greedy. And the Packers come down with it. It's a really great interception. Runs it back really close to almost a pick six, and then he fumbles. And I think it's Carl Brooks ends up falling on it right before Reisner can get there. Reisner was really on it. He almost got that ball back, but Carl Brooks was just a tick faster and a tick closer. So it's Packers ball. We haven't seen this pass from Sam Darnold in 2 months. The only interception he had before that in the last 2 months was the Monday Nighter, and that was on 4th down, and it was like preferable to taking a sack was to just like flip that thing up, and if it gets picked, it's better field position. So like this is like a real true blue interception. We haven't seen him be that careless with it in a while. So not great, but when you have the game that Sam Darnold had, he ends up with 337, 3 touchdowns, and this pick is kind of the only bad moment. I'm not going to kill you for it, but it's a bad play. And it gives the Packers a point-blank shot. They cash it in right away, and suddenly it's 20-10, and we're back. So here's like this kind of gut check moment where we're going, oh no, here it comes. And I think it quells everybody a little bit when the Vikings go down and score right away again. This is incredibly important that the Vikings, are able to score it back. They do not have a 3rd down on this drive. They just like march, and it's beautiful. It ends on a screen to Cam Akers. It almost ends on an Aaron Jones touchdown, and unfortunately, Aaron Jones didn't get to score a touchdown against the Packers either time. He got really close both times. Cam Akers gets this touchdown on a screen, bounces, weaves on 2nd and goal from the 9, and he gets in, so it's 27-10. So, again, we're all nervous, but we are leading 27-10 in the 4th quarter. Like, we're nervous because we're broken. It's like every model, every other like neutral fan is like, all right, this one's over. Let's see what's going on in Cleveland, Miami. Like this was over. And it goes to a Green Bay drive where they move the ball a little bit, but then they end up taking a sack on a stunt on 3rd and 13. I think it's Cashman that ends up getting credited with the sack, but it's a beautiful kind of full D-line, like the whole pass rush kind of looks beautiful and exactly how it's supposed to. Everybody gets pushed way back. It forces Jordan Love way back, screws up his timing, and Cashman can get in and get the sack. The next sequence of events is going to go missed kick, touchdown Packers with the 2-point. 3 and out, touchdown Packers. The collapse this is the collapse now. So why this collapse happened, and I'll get to this in a little bit more detail later, but I think it has a lot to do with the way the Vikings are going to play in the 4th quarter when they're up 27-10. But the Packers just march. I mean, they get like huge explosives. They get out of a 1st and 20 after a holding penalty even. Some embarrassing efforts on 3-man rushes, and like you're rushing 3 and a guy's open immediately. Like how can you have 8 guys in coverage and a guy's open immediately? But the run game for the Packers starts to like out physical the Vikings, but the Vikings aren't using their normal fronts because a lot of it they're playing like it's 3rd down. So you've got like Dallas Turner in the A gap. So that's not what he's supposed to be here for. So they are gonna run down the field 27-18 after they get the 2-point conversion as well. The Vikings go 3 and out, including the most insane Justin Jefferson catch, maybe the craziest catch of the year for him. This like toe or like this like fingertip, like it's like Mookie Betts in the outfield, like fingertip snow coner, bringing it in. That would have converted a 3rd and 5, but Cam Robinson held. The broadcast didn't show it, by the way. I went back and looked. Yeah, he held. It's unfortunate, but it's easy call. And Darnold can't get it back, so can't get the 3rd and 15. He throws like a high kind of wobbler to nowhere. So that brings us to 27-18. Packers drive it all the way back down again. And there's a couple of 3rd downs that they convert here. But again, they get in and they even score a wide open guy with the Vikings having 12 men on the field because they messed up a sub. Packers are going fast. The Vikings are in sort of this, I'm not going to call it prevent, but a lot of people, like, that's the vibe. So we're going, oh my God, here we go again, right? It's 27-25. 2 minutes left on the clock. And the Vikings have to get 2 first downs. That's the way the math is. Almost over 2 minutes. So you got to get through the 2-minute warning and all 3 Green Bay timeouts and kill the clock. And they do that. And they do that by passing 3 times. 3 rollouts. This is a 4-play situation and then 3 kneel downs. 3 rollouts. So you need 7 plays to kill the rest of the clock. That's the way the clock math goes. The first play, rollout, hits CJ Ham. He gets a first down, very smartly stays in bounds. That takes us to the 2-minute warning. Then a zone run, and it's a TFL, by the way. So you get to a 2nd and 11, which is a disaster thing. Then another play action rollout. O'Connell was asked about this after the game, and he's like, yeah, I trusted Sam. It's just saying, like, I put my faith in Sam Darnold more than I put my faith in the run game, even though passing in that situation is clinically insane. With the way, like, how much it helps the Packers if you can stop the clock even once and save them a timeout is astronomical. But a fake run, okay. I guess the fake is believable. And Darnold hits a strike to a tight window into Jefferson, to like a contested Justin Jefferson catch. Like, that DB could have swatted that thing away and changed the whole game, but he didn't. It sets up a 3rd and 2, and they roll out again. Flip one to Cam Akers that he scoops off the turf. Really tough catch for Cam Akers, but Cam Akers kind of gets to be the hero of the day. He gets a game ball too, and the Vikings will kneel it out from there. It was a spicy little comeback, but with the defense sort of locked in their, like, we're in protecting too big of a lead mode and we suck now mode, the offense showed up when it was supposed to. And there are a couple of points I want to make on both sides of the ball. That'll be next. Broadly, the Vikings outplayed the Packers pretty wire to wire in this one, outside of the 4th quarter when they started, I would say, utilizing defense that's not exactly their norm. And it is, I mean, blow for blow, like I've said, so similar to the last Packers game, where when things were in a neutral situation, the Vikings were clearly the better team. When they softened up, they started dropping 8. They started getting more conservative on defense, and that's when Jordan Love could kind of carve them up. That like allowed the game to get back into what looked kind of like, oh no, right? But the stark difference between when you're up 2 scores and the clock's a factor versus when you're up 1 score and you got to make something happen is what tells me in both of these games that if, say, that offsides penalty wasn't called and Will Reichard's kick was actually a miss at the end of the half, and the Vikings, let's say that happened, and let's say the Vikings were up only 24-18 with the Packers having the ball, and that last touchdown drive would not have happened. They wouldn't have played it that way. That's the thing you got to understand about the way the Vikings do this is when they're okay with you scoring, as long as it takes a while, they're going to play it differently and they're going to give up yards, and they understand that. And I bet that they probably have like some super deep, like internal models of analytics that tell you that that's actually like better for win probability or whatever. But if you want to, like, we'll include those, right? For the total of the game, the Vikings were strongly better by EPA per play. They were, Sam Darnold greatly outplayed Jordan Love by any stat you want to go by, any advanced stat you want to go by. I mean, Jordan Love didn't cross 200 in total yards, but if you want to do total EPA, 12.1 to 1.5, that's a drumming. And series success, all of any way you want to slice this, the Vikings were the better team. If the Packers did win this game, it would have been them stealing it, and they would have had to get a stop that they didn't get on that last possession. They would have had to actually go down and get that field goal, and then probably get a stop, and then probably get themselves a stop the other way, or manage the clock properly. There's so many other things that still would have had to happen for the Packers to get themselves back into a lead in this game. And like I said, after they were up 3-0 in the first, they never saw the lead again. They held it for one drive. But in both of the games, they held a lead for one drive. Good for you. So I don't want to hear about all of that, but there are a couple deeper points that I want to touch on here. For one, the offensive line in pass pro in particular was dominant. I mean, it was an absolute butt kicking. Darnold may have felt like he was under some pressure sometimes, but I mean, he stood back there forever. Sometimes they would eventually get a guy, but I think Cam Robinson had a great game. I think O'Neal had a great game. I think Bradbury had a really nice game in pass pro, just by my live eye. So that's fantastic. Darnold was dealing. We talked about that a little bit. But in particular, some of those windows were nasty tight. I mean, he was really throwing some darts, some risky ropes. And that's the confluence of aggression and talent that has made him good here. That is what the thesis of him was always supposed to be, but what has been unlocked here. I should also mention that the run game did kind of falter in this one, but obviously with every Vikings game, they didn't run it all that much. So it didn't have this outsized impact on the game. But part of that was that Aaron Jones went out. He got a quad contusion. That was the way Kevin O'Connell referred to it in the post-game presser in the locker room after the game. He said, "Oh, you got a little sore on us." So he doesn't seem to be using that severe of language. We'll see what kind of performance we get out of Aaron Jones next week. Obviously, that's huge. But Cam Akers, Ty Chandler started to rotate and take the reps. Defensively, Jordan Love was not great in this one. I don't think Packers fans are going to be happy with Jordan Love in this one, at least. I don't think they're going to look at this one and say, yeah, well, he was actually really good. They'll probably, if you wanted to be really sympathetic, you could focus really hard on the last couple drives where he was kind of beaten up on softer zones. But there were a lot of misses, and a lot of those misses were with a guy bearing down on him by making him throw under pressure. Jordan Love loves to throw off his back foot. That's what he does is he throws off his back foot. And sort of the thesis of him is that he can be accurate off of his back foot. He doesn't have to step into the throw because he's got all this talent. And that has just not really borne out enough to keep up with what Sam Darnold has done in both of these games. At least not in these games with the Vikings. And it just hasn't been enough for them. But a big part of that is that you have to get him under pressure and force him to be overconfident in that trait. And that got them 3 interceptions last time. Key interceptions at the end of the game last time. That got him that's gotten him in trouble in the playoffs last year. That's how you beat Jordan Love is force him to throw under pressure and write checks he can't cash. The coverage held up okay, especially on those late throws, but let's talk about the collapse, this defensive problem. So the Vikings dropped 8 on a lot of the reps in those last couple drives. And it's almost like their 2-minute problem. It's actually kind of exactly like their 2-minute problem, where they didn't blitz as much. They kind of backed off it. And essentially, they just didn't want to give up a quick score. And instead, they gave up a 3-minute score. And they essentially just say, okay, we're all right. You got 6 minutes. You need 3 scores. If you take 3 minutes to get one of them, we're all right with that. Now, obviously, once you get into the red zone, then it's just mistakes. And a lot of times, this is less about, well, we're going to do a drop 8 zone, rush 3, and, it doesn't stop anything. Somebody's messing up there. On the whiteboard, those drop 8 coverages do stop the route concept, but somebody is screwing up. Or because you're only rushing 3, it's taking too long. But in this case, it had to be that someone was screwing up. Guys don't get that open without somebody doing something wrong. If the coverage plays out the way it's supposed to, like Tucker Kraft won't be open for a 40-yard pass at the top of the drop. Like that won't happen. That's not how it's drawn up. So I'd be curious to see kind of what the issues were. But this is the theme throughout the whole year. These 8-man coverages have not been good. And it's not, I don't think that 8-man coverages are like schematically, it's the same coverage, but with another guy, with another advantage. Like if you want to turn cover 3 into an 8-man coverage, you now have an extra zone. You just now have another guy basically roaming over the field trying to pick something off. And then otherwise it's the same cover 3 that's been working for you all year. Problem is you take a lot away from the pass rush, right? So now the coverage has to be better than it was before. And I think if those spacings kind of change, I think guys maybe aren't as familiar with the rule set. They probably don't practice it nearly as much as they do their 6-man coverages or their 7-man coverages. And therefore more mistakes get made. So I don't like going to it. And I think that this should, how many times does this sort of thing need to happen before you go, maybe there's a better way to play defense when we're up 17 in the 4th? That doesn't make it a sneaky game every time. Or maybe they don't feel like it was a sneaky game. Maybe they're looking at this and Kwesi's looking at his win probability algo going, actually, we felt pretty nice about that one. So good job, everybody. Let's run that back. Maybe that's what they do. Whatever it is, you get to feel good tonight. You get to feel happy all week because the Vikings swept the Packers. The Packers got swept by the Lions and the Vikings, and now those two teams are going to play for the division. Been saying it all year. It's a 2-team division, and now those 2 teams get to play for it. Doesn't get any better than that. Not only for the division, screw a 2-team division, it's a 2-team conference. They're playing for the NFC 1 seed in the division on Sunday Night Football. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Get your questions in. You can always get them in via the Google form in the show notes. Fill that out anytime you want, or you can send me an email whenever at lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com, or I'll put out a call on Monday morning for some questions for Twitter Tuesday. I will see you all for that. And as always, Skull.